Okay, now as I mentioned in the last video, when it comes to DOM nodes, there's different types. In the last video, we strictly worked with element nodes, and that's the most common type of node, basically an HTML tag. Now, if we look at this chart here, this is actually from W3 Schools, and you can see these are the different types of node types. There's 12 of them. Now, a lot of these you're not even going to need to know or work with. But as you can see, the first one here is an element node. It represents an element. And that's what we were looking at in the last video. And there's specific properties that we can use that pertain to element nodes. Now, some other types of nodes are attributes, okay? An attribute like an ID or whatever it might be, an attribute on an HTML tag, those are attribute nodes. We also have text nodes, which represent textual content. Okay, so any text written within some HTML tags would be a text node. We also have this CData section, which represents a CData section in a document, which is text that will not be parsed by a parser. We also have entities and entity references. This stuff isn't really that important to you right now. Comments, so if you have a comment, that is also a separate type of node. So what I want to do is look at some of these other methods that are available to use with not just element nodes, but other types of nodes as well. And this looks pretty similar to what we already saw, but these are actually different methods. Okay, same structure. We have a parent with three children, but we have, for instance, first child instead of first element child, last child instead of last element child, parent node instead of parent element node, next sibling and previous sibling instead of next element and previous element sibling. And there's also a property, it's kind of cut off here, but it's child nodes instead of children. Okay, so just remember that this works with all nodes while this works with just element nodes, which is usually what you're going to be working with. What I'm going to show you here in this video, you're probably not going to use too much, but I do want to mention it. I want this to be a front to back course. All right, so the only difference between this HTML and the last is I simply have a comment here that says children, because I want to show you that a comment is looked at as a specific type of node. All right, so let's jump into the JavaScript here. And I think the first thing we'll do is look at the child nodes property, just like we had a children property. But we want to do that on the parent. So let's go ahead and again create parent document. We're going to query selector, and we want to select the class of parent. Okay, and then I'm also going to create a variable called output, and then we're going to console log that output. And let's just open up our console here. Okay, so right now that's undefined, but I'm going to set output equal to, and then take that parent element that we selected and look at not children, but child nodes. And it's a property, not a method, so no parentheses. And now you'll see what we get back is not an HTML collection, but a node list. And that node list includes all different types of nodes. So we have a text node, a comment. So what I want to do is go back here and kind of go through and show you what this pertains to. And this goes from where the parent class, this div with the parent class starts, which is right here, to where it ends, which is right here. So all of these nodes are in between that. And you might be saying, well, how? I mean, where the first one is a text node. Where is this? I don't see any text. Well, white space actually counts as text. So this comment goes on to the next line. So this right here is actually that first text node. Okay, if I were to, I'm going to have to disable format on save. So if I search for format, yeah, right here, format on save, otherwise it'll knock it on to the next line. But if I take this comment and I put this right here and get rid of that white space, see how right now this is 0 to 8, which is a length of 9, because the text node, if I save this and look at it now, there's no more text node, and it's a length of 8, 0 to 7. So that text node is gone because that white space is gone. If I put that back and I save it, then that text node is there again. So that's the first thing. Next is the comment. Okay, comments are their own nodes. If I get rid of this and save, then you can see that not only is the comment node gone, but also is the white space after it. Okay, this right here. If I put that back, it's going to go back to a length of 9, and the comment and the white space after it. Okay, this right here. Then we have our element node, which is a div with a child. Okay, div with the class of child. Then we have our white space, which is the text. Then another div element. Then another white space with text. Then another div, and then another white space. Okay, so that's what this is. So as you can see, this navigating this instead of just the elements like in the last video is much more difficult. So you probably won't be doing this that much unless you specifically need to access text nodes. All right, let me just put format on save back on. Okay, so now what I want to look at is we'll stick with child nodes just for a bit, just to kind of see what we can access here. So if I say output and set that to parent.child nodes and we grab 0, that's going to be the white space, the text node. As you can see, it gives us this text node, and we can get all this stuff from it, right? Like we can get let's say text content, not with a 0, and it's just nothing, right? If we look at, let's say, node name, that's going to be text, right? So we have access to all these properties. Let's look at a different one. So we'll copy this down and let's do 3, I believe was the first element. So if we do 3, yeah, 3 node name is div. If we just look at, let's say, the text content, we get child 1. If we look at we know that that's the element, so we can get the inner HTML, which is still child 1 because there's no HTML in it. If we want the HTML that surrounds it, we can use outer HTML, which is 1t. So now it gives us the div with the class of child and child 1. All right, so we're essentially doing the same thing. We just have access to all of the nodes and not just element nodes. If I wanted to change, let's say dot inner text, and I believe this should be the first one, so let's change it to child 1 spelt out. Yep. So if it's more difficult to figure out what you need to access because there's so many of these other types of nodes. What else? We could change the color, so we could do, I think 6 would be the second one. So 6.style.color equals red, or maybe not. I forget which one. Was it 7 or was it 5? Yeah, it was 5. So that's the second element. All right. Now, in addition to child nodes, we also have first child and last child. So let's say output equals parent.first child. Just like we had, remember we had first element child, but that's going to give us the text node, the white space, right? If I were to, I'm not going to turn off my format on save again, but if I were to put this up here, not that, if I were to put this up here, that would get rid of the text node and the comment would be the first one. But if I save, I have format on save, so it's not going to allow me to do that. All right, we also have last child, which is also a text node. What else? Let's see. And I could, since it's a text node, I could say parent.last child.text content and set that to hello. So that'll replace the text node, which was originally white space, with hello. So now I want to look at parent nodes. or getting parent nodes from the child, right? So what we'll do is create, just like we did in the last video, create a child. We'll use document.query selector, and we want to select a class of child. Okay, so what we're doing is selecting this right here. Now to get its parent node, we can use the parent node property. So let's say output equals child.parent node, and that's going to be the actual div. All right, and if we look back at this chart, what we're doing is accessing this parent node. Now it's going to be the same as parent element, right? Even though we have these other types of node like text and comment, the parent is still going to be the same. So if we were to, for instance, do here parent element and I save, we're going to get the same exact thing. So you could use either in this case. And if I wanted to say like child dot parent node dot style dot we'll say background color and set that to a hex value. Actually, let's do something a little darker. Yeah, so we could do that. All right, so that's pretty much it as far as accessing the parent, because there's only one parent node, right? When it comes to children, you have multiple children nodes. Now, as far as siblings, I'm gonna once again get the second item. So I'm going to do that with document.query selector, and we're going to get the class of child, but we want to get the nth. So nth child 2, that'll give us the second one. So just to make sure that's correct, let's set output equal to second item. Okay, so we have the second item. Now, if we were to get the, whoops, let's just bring this up here. So if we were to get the next sibling, right? Not next element sibling, but next sibling, it's a text node, okay? Because of that white space, because we're right here right now, and the next node, not the next element would be this, but the next node would be the white space here. If I were to take this and close that white space, then yes, the next one would be the element. And then just like we have next sibling, we also have previous sibling, which is also going to be a text node. So hopefully this gives you a good understanding of nodes in general versus element nodes, which is what we looked at in the last video. And for the most part, you're going to be working with element nodes. So the other properties we looked at, like next element sibling, previous element sibling, parent element, what else? Children as an HTML collection as opposed to these child nodes. So that stuff you'll probably be working with more. But again, I want this to be a front to back course. I want you to know everything, as far as I know. All right, so that's it. In the next video, we're going to be looking at actually creating elements from our JavaScript.